All right, we're going to go on, because we're going to turn to an exercise here in a second. All right, so it's 1994. Seems like a long time ago. It is. But this problem is universal. And I want to use this case because I know it inside and out. I do not know pawpaw. I do know this inside and out. And this is Thomas Massey, and this is Ken Salisbury. And at the time, they said, can you help us? And what we're going to do is I'm going to take you back, and we're going to watch a video of kind of when they came in and said, Bill, will you help us make this into a company? And it's really Thomas and his wife, Rhonda. And this is the actual device they had at the time. It's in the MIT Museum. And you can see someone using the device here. It kind of goes up and over and down and then in. And all right, so this is from Quantum, a show from Australia. Fortunately, here I won't need translators for this. How do we get to desktop? Sensible. So here's the exercise that we're going to do. I want you in teams of 3 or 4, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go through, we're going to watch this video, and don't worry about what you already know that Beachhead Market is going to be. I want you to look at this video, and you are going to try to come up with as many different markets as you can for this technology, all right? And the team that comes up with the most potential markets, most potential uses for this will win an incredibly valuable and highly desirable prize that doesn't cost much. All right? And the person that comes up, or the team that comes up with the craziest idea for this will win a prize as well. All right? So, everybody got it? And you can reference the what we did in the Wall Street Journal article as well. This is all real. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit here, and this is Quantum. Is Quantum still on here? Okay.
Tonight on Quantum, the final touch to virtual reality, a phantom arm feeling its way in cyberspace. Genetic links that hold hope for victims of breast cancer.
We have a gene that we can say, well, this is the cause.
And plans to cash in on $1 billion crop with the help of an unlikely ally. Hello and welcome to another edition of Quantum. Also tonight from Western Australia, how science is helping to catch gold thieves. But first, Jeffrey Birchfield gets to grips with the latest in virtual reality.
Creating a machine that mimics the human body is a tough act to follow. But Thomas Massey isn't a novice at this. Since the tender age of 9, he's been building robots out of any spare parts he could find. Even his mother's vacuum cleaner wasn't safe. By the time he'd left high school in Kentucky and headed for the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Boston, he could build an arm that R2-D2 would kill for. But this is something very special. You're looking at one of the most remarkable creations in artificial intelligence. Thomas calls it the Phantom, and it's true, there's not much to it, or so it appears. And yet it's capable of putting you in touch with your computer in a way that, until now, seemed impossible. So, throw away the keyboard, forget voice recognition. Phantom uses a much more subtle means of communication, the sense of touch. In the space of a few years, virtual reality has opened new worlds to us. Wired masks and other contraptions have allowed us to see and hear things that exist only in the mind of a computer. But we've been denied the one sense that would have made the virtual truly believable. We couldn't touch those objects and see what they felt like. Well, now that's changed.
Hey, Jeff, pull up a seat. I think you're going to like this.
Okay, I've been really looking forward to this. What do I do?
Well, just stick your finger in this thimble.
Yeah.
It won't bite.
Okay. The thimble is suspended by a jointed aluminium arm just above the desk. At first, it's quite lifeless.
Okay, I'm ready.
But when Thomas activates it,
Now what?
and for now he still has to use a keyboard, it springs into life.
Whoa. Good grief, it's alive.
I quickly find that although I'm free to move my finger anywhere I want, if I push down, I meet resistance. It feels as if I've run into a hard, smooth surface. And then, towards the back, I hit something. A wall?
Try moving your finger up here.
I can't move it any further in that direction.
It's because I programmed a wall there.
Only thing is, there's nothing really there.
It feels so solid. I mean, the amazing thing is, I feel as if I should be able to see this, but there's nothing there.
Nothing but the phantom.
Now, I know this looks really suspicious. You're probably sitting there thinking, oh yeah, he's just got his finger in a thimble pushing it around. Well, yeah, that is partly true, but there's a lot more to it. The amazing thing about Phantom is that when I push with my finger, the thimble actually pushes back, like an invisible force field that I can feel through my finger. And it's such a powerful sensation that you can virtually imagine these phantom objects.
Maybe you'll be more convinced by this demonstration. Now, instead of an invisible wall, my finger encounters some phantom buttons. But this time, as I touch each button, its image pops up on the screen. What's more, they actually switch on and off, and I can feel the click through my fingertip. Amazing. If I had my eyes shut, I'd swear they were real. So how does it work?
Fantastic.
How can a computer possibly convey the sensation of touch? The secret is these black cylinders on Phantom's metal arm. They look like big hinges, but they're actually powerful electric motors controlled by the computer. They're instructed to exert a variable force on your fingertip. So when you hit what feels like a wall, it's really just these motors stopping your finger from going any further.
There, yeah.
Depending on how the motors are programmed, it creates the illusion of touching objects like slippery surfaces, bouncing balls, or what about something much more complex, like living flesh?
There's actually an eye floating here looking in this direction.
That's great.
One of the toughest things for anyone wanting to be a surgeon is getting enough experience. How do you know what it feels like to make an incision in a living person without actually operating on them? Thomas has already seen a role here for Phantom and has produced a couple of touch and feel simulations.
In this particular program, we're going to recreate the feeling of performing a brain tumor biopsy.
Ooh.
So I'm going to pick the path for a needle to go into the patient.
Gosh.
Now, you can see on the screen the red represents the needle, and I'm touching the outer layer, the skin tissue right now, and the phantom is resisting me. And as I apply a force, eventually I'll overcome a threshold.
Ouch.
And now I've already punctured this layer. And I will encounter further layers as I keep pushing the needle into the brain. The trick here for the surgeon, and what's so hard to learn sometimes, is how much pressure to apply before enough is too much.
It's likely that Phantom will make its commercial debut with medical programs like this one.
You subtract A, B, and C.
Meanwhile, Thomas and his colleagues, led by Ken Salisbury, are well into planning the next stage of Phantom's evolution, a multi-finger version that will allow...
All right, so everybody got what's going on here? They can do a multi-finger version. You can do, they just show you can use it in museums. So here's the exercise. The exercise is not how smart you are if you know what Sensible did. That's not the exercise here. The exercise is, based on that technology that you see there, come up with as many different markets as you can for it. All right? And we're not going to give you sticky notes. Someone's going to have to keep track of it and write it down, all right? Because we're MIT, not Stanford. All right, everybody got their teams? You've got to quickly form teams. And the rules of the game, the rules again are the most wins. And the craziest idea wins. Different prizes. All right, everybody, time's up. Time's up. Let's bring it in. Time's up. Count them up. You have to count them up right now. The ballots are closed. No more new ideas. You've got to just go with what you have. By the way, I have some great news for you. Harvard beat Brown in basketball tonight. They won both games this weekend. I know that thrills you to death. All right, just ignore that. That was just completely unnecessary. All right, how many do you have? 18. You proud?
Yeah, we got some creative ones.
Yeah. He says he has some creative ones. So you're going for the second prize?
Yeah.
Okay. How about you all?
We have
6. They had 18. You had 2. By the way, I have to say something. Sometimes there's a misinterpretation of Lamborghinis. Because I'm going to say this. People say, oh, so if Laura comes in and wants to buy a Lamborghini, you don't sell her a Lamborghini. No, that's called illegal. If someone comes in and wants to buy a product, you have to sell them that product. It just means you don't target those people for your product, right? If they want to come in and buy your product, you have to sell them your product. But I'm disappointed. You have 2 women on, there's no women on this team, and you have less ideas than them.
no, lots of great ideas. Wasn't there?
No, the great wasn't, it's number of ideas, and it's craziness of ideas. How many do you all have? 19. Do you feel worse now? You guys are history now. All right, how about you? 14. Not good enough, but thank you for playing. Yeah. 32. Let's you. 30. You have 32. It's funny, you guys sitting right next to each other. Huh? Neck and neck. Little Magic Johnson and Larry Bird going on there, huh? Anybody beat 32? Yes, how many? 38. Is that our winner? 60. Boom! That's what I'm talking about right there. The man from Oklahoma. What? Pennsylvania. That's all right. I'm going to just say you're from Oklahoma and Australia stole your idea. Where's your team? Well done. Well done. Here you go. Here's your prize. It's official. It's more fun to be a pirate than to join the Navy. And since you doubled up everybody else, you get 2 of them. Give it to your loved ones. All right? How did you get 60? How did you get 60 and this team gets 6? Now, do not make excuses at this point, all right? You got smoked. The idea was, and you're not going to take yourself too seriously, and you're going to learn from them. Why did you, the goal of this was the most ideas, not like the best ideas, the most ideas. How did you come up with 60?
We just basically, every single idea that came up, like we didn't sort of have any filter. There was no like, oh, it had to be as good as this. It was like, oh, that could work. We'll just write it down. Like, that's a possibility. Yeah.
Everybody got that? How did you know to do that?
Well, I think one idea, opened up another idea, and then we just kept going and kept getting.
Do you know what this is great. This is what we train our entrepreneurs to do. Did everyone hear what she said? Can you say that again?
We thought of one idea, and then we would think of another one, and then we
The what?
a snowball effect.
Snowball effect. All right.
It gets bigger and faster.
So where are you from?
Chile, Canada, Australia.
Okay. But where are you from? This is a... Okay. Exactly. That's where I'm going. The Persian with the little pea shooter from the back registers every once in a while. You're 1 for 3, buddy. Wait. Madame, I'm running the classroom right now, all right? What we train our students to do is improv. Has anyone ever done improv? And what is the first rule of improv? Yes, and. And what happens when you say no? It shuts down the idea. It would take me 11 minutes. I'm going to give you a link to the video we show our students, and we actually have this improv person come in and teach at ours, and then we have other people go and do a workshop when they're in our advanced class. Improv is fantastic. You're not judgmental. You just say yes and you get this snowball effect, exactly what you were talking about. And that's what you're looking for here. You're looking for lots of energy, lots of ideas, feeding off it, yes and, yes and, yes and, broadening that aperture to get as many ideas as you can. Because right now we're at the top of the funnel. We're at the top of the funnel. Did Erdine talk about this in ideation? No. So you're at the top of the funnel, yes and, and that's precisely, and so what's the lesson here? If you sit there and like you're super analytic and you're very engineering and you're like, no, that doesn't work, you like ruin the mojo. It's just go with it. Every idea, put it down, let's go. Crazier, better, go, bang, 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 and we're off. All right, who thinks they had the craziest idea here? Wait, you guys go last because you probably are going to win this too. Yes, go ahead.
I was diving in December and I had to use muscle memory for a lot of it because once you're 30 meters down, it's silty and it would be useful if we could put those gloves on, change from one tank to another, change regulators, do mask replacements.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Sounds pretty useful. I mean, useful though. Yes.
You know, there are more and more uprisings all around the world and for stones.
Yeah.
I want to use these tools to teach them how to throw stones.
All right. Promoting the Arab Spring could have been so much more successful. You're from Israel too. I don't know how you came up with that idea. All right. Let me go to. Let's go here, and then we'll go to the back.
We were saying long-distance relationships.
Yes? Can you?
And just being able to have that physical touch with your significant other when you're in a long-distance relationship.
Do you mean sex?
No,
Is that what you mean, sex? Yes. Well, people often say, I have this crazy idea. Pornography. Did anybody have the idea of pornography here? Like, you all should have had that idea, right? Is it the biggest market on the internet? Yes. Is it one that uses technology very, very rapidly? Yes. Yeah. So that does not qualify as thinking out of the box. That might be overcoming your internal rectitude morality, but that's not. All right, I said I would go to the back. Madame, where are you from, by the way? I won't do this all the time I'm here, but it's just interesting. Oh, good. Okay.
One of our ideas is like when you're teaching kids different textures and touches, you can always have like a virtual zoo so you can feel different things and then teach kids how to learn about it, I guess.
Lou? Oh, zoo. Oh, so like a virtual pet. Yeah, good. Yeah. So a virtual petting zoo. All right, good. Yes, sir.
We looked at it as a way for androids to interact with humans safely. So you train androids, like an android surgeon, to do brain surgery and use it as the proving ground to say that the android surgeon is ready for field deployment.
I like that. That's like weird. Yes.
We had the idea of when you get angry, being able to like kick or flick the president, so Trump. Or your politician.
Flick them off. That's a big thing here. That's good. I like that. There's actually a big market for that. His I did not understand. So it's got to be crazy here. All right, you got something that's crazy? Wait, let's go to this guy. Where are you from?
From Tasmania.
Yes. Where is Tasmania?
Not that far from here. It's the southernmost state of Australia, the island.
Oh, so it's not even like a country. Oh, damn. I thought this was like another country. So is the Tasmanian devil, is that like an animal, or is that?
It's like a drop there. It's not real. No, it is real.
The first thing I think is these koala bears, right? Like everybody thinks they're a bear, and like people go and hug the koala, and then it pees on them. Because they sleep like, I don't know if you know this, they sleep like 23 hours a day, and then they get up, and then and someone gets really excited, and they go, oh, there's a koala, and they pick it up, and the koala bear gets excited, and then the koala bear does its business. And, so anyway, Tasmania.
Yeah, so my idea, so have you seen The Matrix, where Keanu Reeves learns like karate and all the martial arts?
Yeah, yeah.
A second?
Yeah.
That's the idea, so you can just like train people in martial arts or any sort of skill.
Good, good. Yes?
We were thinking of sniper training, so the entire job of the sniper is just to move his finger from here to here in a really controlled way. If he can use this for training, then
Good, good.
We were going for
Wait, you got to raise your hand. Are you breaking rules in an entrepreneurship? Go ahead. I like it.
we had something.
I'll go to you next. Yeah, no,
I thought we went for a field of celebrity, so you can pick the celebrity you want to touch and feel.
a celebrity. And who did you choose? Okay. Touching a celebrity. Yes.
We had a couple of ones, but I think the best one was feeling the different stages of pregnancy. So if you're a woman, whether you actually want to go through with that, and if you are a male and you want to share the experience with your significant other.
Pretty good. Pretty good. All right. We're going to have two more. Your hand just went up. I'm sorry. You were like not as enthusiastic. The person behind you was very enthusiastic. Wait, you're on the team that already won too. Well, let's go to you, and then we'll go to you, and then we'll come back and you'll have the last one.
So we had teach young girls how to use tampons.
Okay. I've got it. Yes.
So there are some people that don't have the sense of touch. That could be particularly dangerous for the kids. So we feel this is a use case for the kids to learn with a force feedback that some certain things are dangerous.
Yeah. Okay. And last.
So we want to use Phantom to bond with extraterrestrial life and aliens in different galaxies that we couldn't reach to in our lifetime.
That's good. That's good. That's good. But since we're not going to give you again, I'm going to give it to the Android person. Who was the other one who had one that was? Yes, if you think you've got the craziest one, you can beat this. Yeah. No. Okay. That's still not a winner. Who was the other one? I think it was yours, the pain of pregnancy. That was good. Here, I'll give it to the whole team. Because it wasn't actually the idea, it was the way you delivered it so well, to be honest. All right, so why do we do this? By the way, that was good, that was actually quite good. It wasn't the best. The best ever was, somebody else had one over here that was quite interesting. But one was, in a class we had a pregnancy test for watermelons. Exactly. A pregnancy test for watermelons. It's like, that is so great. Because as soon as somebody says a pregnancy test for watermelons, every single idea that you have is very reasonable, right? And the point at this stage, you're trying to open up the aperture to get as many possible ideas as you can. Remember, the goal is not the best one. You don't know what the best one is yet. You haven't done your homework. The idea is to get as many as you possibly can. And some of the most interesting ideas come at the extremes. Some of the best beachhead markets come from ideas that people think are completely wacky. So this idea, and by the way, to your point, this is not something that I just came up with. Where did I steal this from? Do you know? This is brainstorming technique that you would get from IDEO, from Dave Kelly at IDEO. Crazier the idea, the better at the beginning. Open up that aperture really, really wide. And so as soon as you say something like that, you're like, man, I am being way too conventional just thinking about pregnancy tests for human beings, right? You can get really crazy here. And often those markets are the most interesting markets to come about. And we'll get into this. I'll just tell you one. So we had this great team, and you can see them, and you can actually go onto our website, entrepreneurship.mit.edu. And her name was Shana Opperman. And she was really, really determined to make this app. Or first, she didn't know what it was going to be, but she felt that, in her world, people were getting more and more on social media. So they knew more people, but the relationships were getting shallower and shallower. And so she wanted to build something that would allow people to build loving communities and sustain those loving communities. And so she really, she worked incredibly hard on this to do primary market research. And the company is now called Hippo. And it is now part of the Techstars cohort in Boston. And she really wanted to do this. She tried it on her friends, and she couldn't come. She kept changing the product and doing all sorts of things, but she didn't get traction as well as she wanted to make it a real company. And so opened up the aperture further to look at different market segments, and she found that there was one person on her team that the people were using this product more than others. And it turns out it was a faith-based person, a very, very Christian person from the south of the United States. And it turns out that that was the perfect market, because for her app, you can go in and watch it. It's HIPPO. And if you go to entrepreneurship.mit at Delta V demo day this past year. But that market was great. And she was not a Christian, kind of born-again Christian proselytizing. But she went and she found that this group was always giving each other help and support in what they were doing. And when they had a tool, they embraced her tool and started using it at rates that were much higher than any other market was doing it. And she just wouldn't have done that if she just kept her, thinking of the world. So the idea here is open up your aperture and think very, very broadly. And this step that you just went through is an incredibly important step. And so you all have your ideas now. But what you have to do is you've got to brainstorm here now. Do you all have your ideas that you have your teams? You don't have your ideas. Okay. So you got to come up with some idea. And then you got to figure out who is the customer for this, right? Now, you could start off with a technology, or you could start off with, I know that this is a problem. I know that this is an opportunity. And either way, it comes back to the same thing. You have to stop thinking about what you can do, and you have to figure out what they want, and then building the company back from the customer, not pushing out what you think is the right answer. And in this exercise we just did, nobody here was asking me questions about, is this an ironless armature motor? Is this a stepper motor? What kind of resolution does this do? What type of pounds per force is it? You started just thinking, who is the customer? And that is the most important first step that you can do in this whole, that is the most important step, because if you don't do this, nothing else matters. Who is the customer? And you got to invert the way you think away from looking internally to looking externally and putting yourselves in the customer's shoes and start looking back. And this is not easy, especially, how many of you are engineers here? So we engineers have a hard time. We want to build something and then go put it in front of them because, we don't really like humans that much and we'd have to talk to them, all right? So we just say, here's what you need. Do you like it? But you have to understand and empathize with a demographic, psychographic, and build everything back from there. Because as I'll show you, that decision will dictate not just your product, but the messaging, pricing, channels, everything is built back from who the customer is. So from the very first step, we're doing market segmentation and trying to get broad-based set of ideas, because then we're going to narrow that down to one. And that's the step that you just went through. Was that kind of fun? Yeah. And it should be fun at this point. You should get everybody included, because one of the things you're going to be working in this is building up a team. The number one success factor for a startup is not the original idea. The original idea is the most overrated thing. It's actually not even who is your customer. It's not even understanding this process, but it's the quality of the team that you're going to have going forward. And doing the market segmentation as a team will start to build cohesion in your team and get you all on the same page that, yes, we're going to go after this market. And people won't say, why are we going after this market? Erdine said that. I don't think that's the right answer. It's not just the answer you come up, it's the process that you go through. And so this market segmentation exercise that we did is fun, and it should be fun. And if you're having a hard time coming up with new ideas, there's facilitators here. You could go out and get an adult soda if you want. Do you know what that is? Beer. Yes, that's beer. Or if you're still struggling, you can get some hippie lettuce and smoke that. Not in Australia. You guys are so repressed here.
We use alcohol instead.
You use alcohol. That's good. That's much better. That's much more moral. But anyway, so the point here is everybody should be relaxed. You don't have to get drunk. You shouldn't get drunk. You can drink coffee, but sit around and come up with ideas as a team and say, what about this? Oh, that's funny. You should be laughing at this point, because it's going to get a lot harder as we start moving forward. And you better build some relationships at this point. So now you have all yours. I want you just to take a few minutes. This will just be 3 minutes. I want you to go through and say, which of these ideas that we've chosen, even if you just have a meager 6 ideas, which ones would we choose to focus on, right? You really should have like 30 at this point, and now we'd focus down to 8. Which ones would you choose? And not just which would you choose, but why are you going to choose those? All right? Write down which ones you're going to choose and why. And why. Okay, everybody, let's bring it back in. Again, what I'm trying to do is like rush you through the process once, really fast, so that when you go back and now you go with your team, you go through the same process, but you'll have more time and you'll have your own idea. All right, so you brainstorm, you came up with lots of ideas. What were the criteria you used to filter these out to say these are the ones that we're going to focus on next? Because you're not going right to a beachhead market. You're going to go from lots to a manageable few, call it 8 to 10. Yes, my Israeli friend.
So we judge it by, first of all, market size.
Market size. Okay, wait, only one per person. Market size, yes?
The value added by the product.
Your value proposition, right?
Yeah, the same. The value to the consumers and the users.
Yeah, value prop. Someone else was yelling. Yes? Feasibility. Feasibility of what? Of the business? Okay, yes, sir. Montreal. The capability? Likability. What's that? I don't really know what that means. Okay, what? Yeah, okay. Yes?
Problem that you're solving.
What do you mean by that? They're all...
Specific problem that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, but what about the problem?
Is it real?
Yeah. Okay, so that would go to value proposition. I'm going to wrap that under value proposition. Let me go to someone I haven't called on. Yes, sir. Novelty. Yep. Kind of competitive advantage. Yes, sir.
Social aspect.
Social aspect. What do you mean by that?
I mean, something which we were thinking about, like animals, the animals which are extinct, probably we can give an experience to people.
Okay. Let me just go through quickly here because we're going to have to go really fast. First of all, you would use a personal filter, right? And do not underestimate. This should be the very first filter you go after. Is this something we want to do? Because if you don't want to do it, you don't get excited, don't do it. Doing a startup is really, really freaking hard. And if it's not something that you're excited about, you can see yourself doing for a long period of time, you will not last. You will not last. You'll last when the elevator goes up, and when the elevator goes down, you'll say, geez, I want to go work at that company I used to work at. And the elevator guaranteed will go down. And it will go down like the cable is broken. And it will. So the highs will be high and the lows will be really low. By Wednesday, you will likely be ready to kill each other, right? And the only thing that's going to keep it going is you believe in what you're doing. You believe in the mission, the raison d'etre, as we like to call it. For those who don't know, that's Spanish for reason for existence. Yeah, that's a joke. That's a joke, all right? Just seeing if Romanians knew another Romance language, all right? Where are you from?
I'm from Romania.
Yeah.
Friends.
Yeah, it's the same thing. The Romanians are French. All right. Personal filter. So just think about the situation we just did. What would you lop off? What do you think we lopped off? Got rid of, eliminated. It didn't make it through the filter.
Ideas that fall out of our area of expertise.
Yeah. So let me tell you in the real case, pornography is a huge market. But guess what? I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to go home to my mother and say, Mom, guess what? You worked really hard. Your dad worked really hard. You sent me to college, and I worked at IBM, and guess what? Now I'm going to really make it. I'm going to be king of porn on the internet. Aren't you going to be so proud? You better like what you're doing. You better be proud of what you're doing. You better like the customer that you're dealing with, because you're going to be doing this for a long time. You're going to be doing it for a long time. Do not ignore that filter. That is the first filter. Yes, my Persian friend who lives where now? In Brisbane.
Must be a little bit too academic, but Mr. Clayton Christiansen has a theory about jobs to be done.
We'll be talking about jobs to be done. Are you going to be throwing all this theoretical bullshit in from the background all that 48 hours? Just package it up for the last half hour, all right? I will get to jobs to be done, all right? The first thing is personal filter, all right? Does everybody get this? You gotta get excited about what you're doing. If you aren't, then you're not gonna last. This is the raison d'etre for you gotta have something here. Second thing is, does the technology really do the job? In this case, this is a technology push. Is what we want to do possible? Is this play to our strength? Well, guess what in this? What eliminated? Gaming. Gaming. A lot of you had gaming, right? Big market out there. You can put some bang bang in there. You put some touch it. But the problem is that gaming is very cheap and it's mostly two-dimensional. It's not truly richly three-dimensional. And the technology that we had is about three-dimension. A three-dimensional world is where touch really matters. If I'm just doing two dimensions like this, the world's just flat, then a pointer is perfect. A mouse is perfect. It's just X and Y. The challenge is that when you're all of a sudden dealing in a 3D world, where I'm in the world like this, and I want to know when do I get to that? Ah, right there. That's where it is. It's much faster than I go, where's that koala bear? Oh, there's a koala bear, it's right there. Touch becomes much more valuable in a 3D world. And we needed to be dealing with 3D problems, which eliminated a whole bunch of things. You mentioned market attractiveness. Can we get to cash flow positive in this? Is this market big enough? It does not have to be the biggest market. Does not have to be. And it should not be the biggest market, as we're going to get to. You don't go after the biggest market first. Why? Yeah, you can blow it, right? And there's no one from Bolivia here, but the old saying amongst entrepreneurs is launch in Bolivia, because if it goes bad, hey, who knows, you know? Colombia, don't tell them that, all right? We love them.
That was me.
But you get the point. And you won't forget the point.
The saying is you launch in Adelaide.
Yeah. But the point is that you do something where it's not such an exposure. If you're playing American football, do you know American football? It's where grown men get together and hit each other on the heads to create concussions so they won't live long. And lots of people watch on TV. And the Pats win every game, right? So if you want to play football and you have a team, the best college team in the United States is Alabama, right? They're monstrously good. Do you want to play Alabama in your first game? Of Who do you want to play in your first game? Brown? You want to play MIT, right? Why do you want to play MIT? Exactly. You have a football team? Yeah, they suck at football. Because you're going to win the game and you're going to start getting some momentum, right? You're going to start working this out. It's very important to win and then move up the food chain. And then you play. Yes. Focus on the bigger point, not the. It's just like Colombia is still confused about this whole Bolivia thing. The point is simple. You play someone who's not good, and then you work your way up to play the better team later, right? You know, if you want to play rugby, let's use it for you Australians, you don't start out playing the Kiwis the first game, right? You play like the Irish or somebody like that, right? And you work your way up. And then in the last game, when you're ready, you take on. If you're going out, you don't go after the biggest tree in the forest first. If you're a boxer, you don't fight the biggest, baddest person first. You kind of build your way up. Yes? You will come to this. You don't go for the biggest one, right? And by the way, this is not something, again, to my friend over here, this is not something I came up with. This is super well known. If you go to Facebook or Google, they launch their new features literally in like Bolivia, and then they test it there because they don't want to get a bad reputation in the States. So they work the kinks out over here, and then they go over there. But the market should be good enough so that gets you to cash flow positive. And then the other things are you have a high chance of winning, and then it will lead you strategically to better and better markets, right? So you don't do something that you could win that doesn't create some value that you could, or knowledge or features or IP that you couldn't move to a better market. You ultimately want to get to potentially the biggest market, but you have to think, is the first one something big enough to be interesting to get me to cash flow positive? Can I win it? And then will it set me up for bigger ones after? And so you're not going to do a tremendously detailed analysis here, but that's how you're basically funneling it down to smaller ones. Now, once you've done that, it will turn out that you've eliminated all the ones probably that are personal, and then all of these things become the filter for a beachhead market. And this is what's in the worksheets and in the book, and you can pull all this stuff out. I'm not going to repeat it here. But it's all about now we're going to take those 8 and get down to a beachhead market. And when you look at, this is not in the book, and you'll have this in your slides. These are the actual slides that we use when we were trying to break down what market should Sensible go after. Entertainment, industrial design, marketing visualization, surgical simulation, microsurgery. This is telerobotics here. This is kind of working this way, where there's a smaller robot inside. If you do that, telerobotics, that leads you to things like hazardous material, fixing outer space, space stations and things like that. These other ones create kind of interacting with 3D data in a very natural and intuitive way, kind of like interacting with clay, but it's actually in a computer, an analog interface to digital information. So there's different technology here. This is which is this one, interfacing with seismic and data, which is 3D data of the Earth. This is medical visualization. This is 3D data of humans. Industrial design is basically digital clay, and this is creating 3D shapes for movies. This is surgical simulation. Has a little bit of that, but it's more kind of these devices interacting with it. And then this is computing for the blind, which is a new user interface. And this is virtual prototyping, which is interacting with 3D data to see how things fit together and if you can do maintenance on them. Just to be clear, I'm going to give you this. This is not a market. This is a solution in search of a problem, virtual reality. It's like when your target customer is a researcher, that probably means with very high levels of certainty, you are not going after a real market. You're just selling it to a bunch of people who will buy one and reverse engineer it and probably never buy another one. So then you say, why is this here? Because I had a board member who insisted that it was a market, and I disagreed, but it's not good for your career to tell board of directors they're stupid. Just kind of put what they want up on the slide and ignore it and keep moving, right? And so do not pay attention to this. And by the way, I'll give you an insight to virtual reality. All of you know virtual reality? It's 2 years away. It's 2 years away. No matter where you are or when you are in space, it's 2 years away. And it will always be 2 years away. It was 2 years away in 1994, and it's still today, it's 2 years away. It's a problem looking, it's a solution looking for a problem. This is Google Glasses. What the hell was Google Glasses solving? How's it doing? Yeah. Yeah. Like a segue. People are like, oh, yeah. If it had succeeded, then the 24-step methodology is not negated. It just shows that you can succeed and ignore all this. But the odds of success if you do this are much, much higher. That's all we're doing here. So, and when you look at this, you'd say, wow, look at this. This is the biggest market. We should go after it. Well, we talked about how you shouldn't go after the biggest market, but this is not the biggest market just because of the size. Computing for the Blind does not have a lot of money, and it's funded by the government, and the government's very slow, and it takes you, the sales cycle is very long, so the customer acquisition would be very high. We eliminate this one. Selling to oil and gas, very, very difficult. Very cyclic business. When the price is high, they want to pump oil as fast as they can, and when it's low, they're trying to strip costs out. We could have succeeded in spite of ourselves. Because of it, we don't know, but we didn't like not controlling our destiny. Prototyping, this was a very difficult one, and this comes into a lot of the other ones, in that the lead customers, it was an oligopoly in that a few big customers controlled the marketplace. And General Electric was one of them. And then in this situation, people say, I'm going to make lots of money, I'm going to sell to Walmart, and then they'll sell it through. The problem is places like GE and Walmart, who have large market share, have extraordinarily strong purchasing departments, and they squeeze their vendors so that they don't make money, because they will make the money. And they control the negotiation, the power in that negotiation. So this eliminated a bunch of them. We thought this one, surgical simulation, was going to be the answer at the beginning, but we ran the process. We trusted the process. And it turns out that when we dove into this, even though we had a lot of people who wanted this, and our value proposition was super strong, and the number of people who would buy it, as we dug into it, we found out that they would buy a bunch of them, but they couldn't buy that many. Even though the market seemed really big, people who are in training don't control their own budget because they're a cost center. If you want to sell into a business, you go to where the revenue is made. Where's the revenue brought in? Cost centers, they're trying to decrease costs all the time. They're dependent on revenue going up. So you'd always want to sell to a revenue center, someone who you can increase revenue, because then it's easier to justify buying your product than someone who's a cost center. And in an organization, the people who are the best people at selling within the organization, the people who have the most juice, are people who command P&Ls, that they can drive revenue. They run business units. The people who are not as good and don't have as much juice have cost centers. And so when we dove into this and said, okay, you love it? Yeah, we love it, we love it. You know, can you buy 100 of these? Yeah, we'd love to, but it's dependent on these other people. And then I said, well, who do we go to then? Where's the money here? Because there's a lot of money slushing around. They said, you want to go to where the money is? You go to where the blood is. You have to go into the surgery room. That's where we make money. We don't make money by training people. We make money by doing more surgeries. So whenever you're thinking about this with B2B, see if you can get to those people who drive revenue, because those people are more powerful in the organization. The impact of your product is going to allow them to pay for it and buy more, much more easily. This drove us back into microsurgery. Two issues with that. First of all, it's telerobotics, and we were really thinking that the opportunity was this kind of 3D interfacing with 3D data. And the second thing was to do this, all of a sudden we realized that even though it was small, it wasn't strategic enough, and it would take too long. Thomas and I wanted to get results within 5 years. To do this, we would have had to hire doctors. We would have had to go through regulatory approval. It would have taken 10 years to get to where we felt we would know whether we were going to succeed or not. So we did not do this. And there's an interesting story about that later I could tell you. And so that left us at entertainment industrial design, and entertainment is what really everybody wanted to do because this was so sexy. And you know, we had basically kind of eliminated, we're down to this one, and everybody thought we were going to do this. They were buying Silicon Graphics we bought Silicon Graphics workstations so they could do these amazing things. This is when Toy Story was coming out, to create these 3D things that was very difficult for them to do. They had to do things like alias wavefront and soft image, which are very hard. And so who was the end user? It was an animator who sculpted and then animated the thing. They sculpted in clay, and then they had to move this thing around to show how you know, whatever his name was, Toy Story would move. And they had to paint them in 3 dimensions. All this stuff was really, really hard for their creative types to do, because the only tools that could do this were engineering tools, and engineers think much, much differently than creative types. So they basically were rejecting these tools, and they were doing it in clay and then saying, this is what we want to do, and passing it over, and then someone had to take the clay and then convert it in, and it increased cycle, and it was very difficult to use. The customers, however, were big ones. Disney, Industrial Light and Magic, and DreamWorks, and we knew who those were because we did a lot of primary market research. And the other one up here is Pixar. And they had very high price talent. They were growing very rapidly, adopted new technology. We knew who these people were. Partners are people who you're going to be in the value chain with. What comes in and what goes out, you know, because you have to fit into a job to be done. You have to fit in the customer's workflow. And there were about 40,000 of them, and they had a Wacom, that was kind of it, and clay, and they ran on Silicon Graphics and Windows, and we had to provide the whole solution for them. We couldn't just say, here's a Phantom. We had to provide software that did non-uniform rational B-splines. That's a type of math and file representation. They loved their styluses. They wanted to paint with a stylus, a brush, a stylus, sculpt with that. And they had to have dynamics as to how it worked. So if we were going to do that, that wasn't our core. That wasn't what we were really good at. But you never just deliver a carburetor to someone when they want to buy a car. You say, oh, here's a carburetor. Go buy the rest of the parts from other people and put it together yourself. Nobody buys that. They want to buy a car. And so you have to give them the whole solution. And to do that, these are what these things are. We went after this, and we were blowing the doors out of it. And they loved us. And so I went to them and said, great. You know, we've proven it now. Let's sign an order for, 20 with a letter of intent for 100 more if all goes well. They said, oh, we'll do that. But what do you mean a purchase order? I said, well, how much it costs, and you're going to pay us. I said, no, that's not how we work. You do this, and then we put your name in the credits at the end of the movie. And you can come to Hollywood and see the launch of the movie. I'm like, no, that's not how we work. You got to pay us because my people don't eat credits, right? And they're like, no, that's not how we work. These people, again, controlled it, and they were very difficult to work with. It was a concentrated group of people, and they had everybody wants to work in Hollywood, so they got people to do stuff for free. We could not do that. So this dropped out, which left us with this marketplace, which we were quite excited about, but there were a lot of people who really wanted to go to Hollywood and do this, because this was essentially the same problem for stylists and designers. And then when we chose this really opened everything up. So this is how you would build your matrix. You're going to have all these worksheets. Then you're going to pick a beachhead market. You're not going to try to do everything at once. Just like, when the Nazis, I don't know if you remember the Nazis, before they were in Charlottesville, Virginia, they were in Europe. And so the Allies wanted to get rid of them back when the Americans didn't like Nazis. And so you didn't attack on all sides. What you did is you chose one little part, and then you got in there. And that's the beaches of Normandy. And once you got in there, you conquered that, and then you systematically moved forward to new markets thereafter, right? So if you don't like this militaristic, just think of a field of nice, fluffy bunnies, right? And if you go out and try to catch all those bunnies at once, how many do you catch? None. What do? You focus on one bunny. You go after one bunny, kind of fat, maybe injured, and you get over there and you get that one. And you build up your confidence. Yes, you protecting the bunnies?
Saying to not tackle the biggest market first, with the phantom, what market did you tackle first? Because those are some big names you were showing.
Oh, yeah. So what we did is, I'm going to get into that in 1 second and show you the kind of end game, is we went after industrial design. But then even with industrial design, once you pick a beachhead market, then you kind of peel back the onion, and there were 3 industrial design starts, we started learning about it, is actually 3 different markets underneath that, 3 gradations of that. And those markets were, so industrial design breaks down to the high end, which we learned are people who are called stylists. These are the divas of industrial design. These are the people in car companies. And they design beautiful cars with reflectivity. And you have to look at them, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not what we were going to do. That was like the highest apple on the tree, right? The lowest apple was actually kind of furniture. This is like things that were very geometric. Most furniture like this, and computers, very rectilinear. And that's not that interesting. I mean, CAD/CAM stuff can do that. If you had SolidWorks, we could do this easier, but that wasn't like 10 times better, right? Where we crushed it was sculpting, or we could crush it with sculpting. And this is for things like toys, jewelry, turns out sneakers, parts of furniture where you have sculpting. And how did you identify these? They self-identified themselves as sculptors in the special IDSA, Industrial Design Society of America, special interest group for sculpting. And they love their clay. They love their clay. And they hate it when people are trying to move them off that, because it was very organic designs. And I'll show you that in a second. But just back to this. So you don't go after 2 rabbits at once. This is something well known again. There's sayings in Romania, there's sayings everywhere. Person who tries to catch 2 rabbits catches neither. I think maybe the Russians said it. The Russians definitely said it, but since Marius was our designer, he says it's Russian, so he wins. This is a worksheet you can go through, and it's, does your customer have money? We didn't mention that. Like, when you think about a customer, do they have money? Computing for the Blind didn't have money. Can we get to them directly? You can't go through an intermediary. You need to go directly to them, because the feedback loop is so important for you. You're not going to get the product right at first. And if you go through somebody else, they're probably not your friend, and they're going to make it much more difficult for you. Will you have a strong value proposition? Can you deliver the whole product? Is there competition that's really fierce that will stop us? Can we leverage the strategic value to other markets? Is it consistent with what we do? And so then, this is an algorithm. This is, again, a discussion to say, what beachhead market are we going to choose out of the 8 that we chose? And there are all kinds of worksheets you have, and then you sign it, and you go. And you burn the boats. Actually, you don't burn the boats. You take the wood off, and you build a house in the new place, and you save a little boat over here just in case it all blows up, right? But you don't discuss any other markets for the time being. You go after industrial design, what we did at Sensible, until it just doesn't work. And then you say, that doesn't work, we're coming back out, and is there any other one that we can do? And there's often more than one path to success. But the path to failure is to say there are multiple beachhead markets. Beachhead market does not exist with a disciplined entrepreneur in the plural. Beachhead market only exists in the singular. And this is what we just talked about, how you would peel it back and get to that. And for our market, they would all buy the product that we had a mock-up, that we had a brochure for. It was a very similar sales process for all of them, and I'll show you that. And the word of mouth existed. They all went to the Industrial Design Society of America. They had the same demographic, psychographic. I'll show you in 1 second. So we talked about Jeff Bezos. Beachhead markets, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, going to be the most valuable company in the world. I don't know if it is right, it is yet. But Amazon will not be stopped until the antitrust police come in. It is just unbelievable. But it didn't exist. Do you remember when Amazon did not exist? And then they existed and they only did one thing, and one thing only. And what was that? Books, of course, because it's a fabulous market, right? It's like a highly differentiated product with lots of, competitive advantage they could gain. And it's a market that's growing very rapidly, and people were making lots of money.
Do you think that was intentional?
No, wait, that was all that I just said was complete bullshit, right? Like Borders was going out of business, and Barnes & Noble's going out of business, and books aren't different. A book is a book is a book, right? But Jeff Bezos picked that, and he relentlessly went after it because it was the easiest one, and he knew he could win it. And if he won that one, that was his Beaches of Normandy, and then he could move into CDs, and then he could move it. And now the freaking guy, he owns the world. He owns the back end, he does content, he owns stores. But it all started within your lifetime with books. Do you guys remember what books are? They're these things like, it's like printed blogs. Just think of it that way, right? Yes?
I was wondering if you could expand a bit on, if you had a two-sided marketplace.
We're going to get into that. Let me just wrap up. All right, so you are going to build your target customer profile, your demographic, psychographic. You're going to get down to what are their watering holes? What other products do they own? What's a day in the life look like for them? What's the, quote, job to be done? And then what are their number one priority? What do they lose sleep over? What do they fear more than anything else in the world? And then what's the second thing that they fear more, or most motivating thing for them? And how much is that to them? Is this like, the most important thing is the computer must not go down, and that is like 99%. And then how much does it cost? That's 1%. And then how green is it? -2, right? They don't care. You have to understand what your customer cares about. What did Laura care about? Her kids. Her kids, that was like 100%. Like her husband, that was like -4, right? And then for Giovanni, image. What do people think of? That's what he cares about. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the cost. Some people, it is about the cost. But most people are not driven by the cost. That's the easy way. You say, oh, it's all about cost. No, most of the time it is not. You got to understand it. And then you build the beachhead, you build the TAM. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can just pull out of the book on how to do that. And then you pick one person who is going to be your persona, and you drill down on that. And this is dangerous, because a persona is very, very powerful, and it will really get people focused. And if you get focused on the persona that does not represent the beachhead market, then you're leading people down the wrong way. So it's important you get a good persona. A persona is very, very powerful, because people love specificity. They love to know that it's real. And this is why when you look at unfortunate election, here you have one person saying, here's lots of numbers, here's lots of policies, and then you have this other person over here talking about, here's Joe the plumber. People they get motivated by specific real stories as opposed to just throwing abstract numbers at people. And you need to motivate people. It must be real. This is all about persona. This just tells you it's not about data-driven, it's more story-driven. And your job is to not do more research, but to get people motivated to start doing stuff and figure out if it's working or not. Get in that kind of spiraling to get to a better and better answer. And often you can just look at someone's website and see who they're putting up there. If you go to Peloton, you can see who their target customer is because they're smart. They put the suburban mom up there to do it. But sometimes you can't tell if you look at the Honest Company. Jessica Alba is not the persona. She's what the persona aspires to be like. Kia is trying to find people who are influenced by LeBron James. So often in ads, you know immediately who their persona is, or you know who their hero is, who their aspirations are. Both are important. And you're trying to get the closest one to the middle of it, the best. Don't get the outliers. And if you get one here, that's okay, but then try to figure out if you can find a better one and swap your persona out and get a better one over time. So these just talks about, this is jobs to be done stuff that a friend talked in the back about. You have to look at what's the job they're trying to do, and not just once they get your product, but how do they know they have a problem or there has an opportunity? And then the full life cycle use case all the way through until they pay, and then they buy more and or tell other people. This is going to be really, really important as we go forward. And this will tell you whether not just they buy the same product, is it the same sales cycle? So, and this is all in the book. So let me, and by the way, one last thing is, you're going to build a brochure, and then you're going to come in and you're going to quantify the value proposition. You're going to take what the persona cares about most, and then you're going to lay that out here and say what's the as-is state, and then what's the possible state. For sensible, now this should all make sense to you. What did David Ballou and David Ballou's manager care about? The number one thing they cared about, what they lose sleep is, how fast can they get a product to market? Because a product, if they're a good product, there's a window for selling that toy. And they better hit that window. Because if they miss it, they end up with a lot of toys that they then have to worry about getting rid of. They discount. So time to market was their number one concern for Dave Ballou and his manager, the end user and the economic buyer. And we did was interview them and get how long was the ideation phase? How long was the tech? Well, how did we know there was an idea? We just asked them. We found out what the next stage was. What's the next stage? What's the next stage? How long do each one of these takes? What goes on here? This is kind of how the process works today and what the output it produced, 16 weeks. With ours, we could do it in 8 weeks. And this was conservative. We didn't say it was conservative, but we went through each stage and we mapped it to what they were, and we made sure that we were really comfortable we could do this in 6 weeks, and then we said 8. Because you want to underpromise and overdeliver if you're a startup. Don't get in the point where you said 6 and you come in at 7, and 7 relative to 16 is a home run, because if you do that, other people don't want you to succeed. And they're going to point out, oh, they're a startup. See, they can't deliver on time. Don't trust them. Trust us. We're IBM. We'll do it for you on time and on budget. Don't give them that knife to get you with. Because this is just still a slam dunk. 8 weeks versus 16 weeks. So now let's just show you what this becomes. There's a whole bunch of this stuff in the book. Here is the Tomorrow's World. This is another actual true video after we had, so what we did is we raised, how do I go to the, we raised $2 million to kind of make our Phantom, people wanted to buy the Phantom. We made it so that it was more reliable and we could start selling them to people. This generated more income for us and allowed us to try many different markets by giving products to people and see what they would do with it and having them pay us. Then after we decided, we rose those $2 million, we said, all right, we've decided what our beachhead market is. It is now going to be industrial design. So that's where we are now. We raised $5 million to build a new product. That new product is a new hardware product. It is a new software product that looks at, and it's a new underlying geometry that people had never done before. It's 3D pixels, or what's called voxels. And we built a competitive advantage, which we're going to talk about later. But now we come out to the market for the first time with our minimum viable product, and this happens at one of the most popular shows in, who's from the UK? Do you remember Tomorrow's World? Okay, this was like one of the most popular shows. Like the whole family sat down on Sunday night to watch this in 1995, 96. And this is what happens. This is what comes onto their telly.
Now, a revolution in 3D computer design. Even in this electronic age, there's one group of designers who resisted going digital: sculptors and model makers. Many models made for the toy industry and for movie special effects are still painstakingly made by hand. The trouble is, if you get it wrong, you have to start again from scratch. Now, this is Simon Goodall, and he's a sculptor and works for one of Europe's biggest model-making companies. Simon, you've worked on everything from Toy Story to Action Man models. Why don't you go for a 3D computer graphics package?
Now, watch how clearly he's going to talk about our value proposition. You know, time to market, ease of use to learn, you know, and he just kind of, it's clear about design intent. Those are 3 big things that we hammer on. And just kind of notice his effect and his kind of his psychographic, if you can. And then also notice how much the hardware has just dramatically changed. It looks totally different now.
Well, they take quite a long time to learn, and you can't actually feel the object you want to create.
You want to feel that under your
I
hand,
want
the
to
real
feel
stuff.
it on my hands. I want to be able to move, manipulate, and feel it while I'm doing it. I want to get dirty with it.
Okay, well now all that might be about to change.
This is a new digital sculpting system that lets you see.
See, did you see the piece of hardware right there? Much, much different. Now it looks like a beautiful thing that you'd love to have sit on your desk. And we spent a lot of money and time to do that. It wins awards and everything. And notice that she calls it, never mentioned robotics, never mentions haptics as a digital sculpting tool.
See beyond the 2 dimensions of a screen. The idea is that you can literally reach out and touch your creation. Now, Simon is one of the first sculptors in this country to try the system. So, Simon, this is the same T-Rex as was on the pedestal.
Yes.
How long did this one take?
About 3 days,
And how long did that one take?
3 weeks.
So there's a
3 days, 3 weeks. Also notice he's chewing gum on national TV.
massive time difference in how long they take to sculpt. And how do you start, and what's the difference?
Well, if I show you an example, this virtual reality clay ball, as you see on the screen, I can pick a tool, and with this very special pen contraption, I can work clay as if I'm actually touching the object. I can feel what I'm seeing.
Well, what does it feel like?
It kind of feels like mashed potato.
So it's not the same as getting messy, but you're just getting the same kind of feeling under
That's
your
right.
hand.
Yeah, uh-huh.
How long does it take to train on this then?
Oh, a few days.
Really?
It just boils down to getting used to the touch, the feel, you know.
But compared to other systems?
Compared to other systems like normal 3D packages, it's very, very quick, because with those packages you don't actually feel it. You have to mathematically arrange all the components together and try and create a creature, whereas this is very organic. It's like you're actually sculpting.
So almost...
So he said, it just takes a few days to learn this thing. And she said, what about the others? And he basically kind of flubbed it a little bit, but it takes months. Months. He's kind of indicating that there, and anyone who is in that job knows what he's saying.
Almost any old presenter of Tomorrow's World could have a go then.
Yes, that's right. In
Can I have a go?
Of course.
What can I work on?
You can work on something I prepared for you earlier, which is right here.
My face!
So if you pick up the tool,
Okay.
and then with the selected tool from the screen, you can touch the object.
Okay.
You touching it?
Yes. It feels... Actually, it feels really hard.
You can feel the contours.
Oh.
And with this tool
Weird.
here,
Yeah.
we can start to stretch and contort your face.
So
if
you can change things around and then start again and then
Yeah,
go
that's
back
right.
to the
Yeah.
original if you
Yeah,
didn't
you have
like
all the
it.
advantages of a computer, you know, you can just delete your last mistake and so forth. If you just activate the ball,
It's
I
so
like
strange.
Space
You can
Boy.
feel it. What are you
See,
doing now?
I could take your nose here and I could just pull it out.
Yeah, but I don't want you to do that. Oh, no, I don't want a nose like that. I look like a witch. Even more like a witch. At the moment, this system is very expensive, so it's really only for professionals. But maybe one day we can all play with one at home. Be nice.
So I guess that's the witch hunt that Trump's talking about. So let me just ask you a few questions. First of all, anyone who was in Simon's job who saw that was like blown away. Our server just came down almost immediately. So this is on prime time, one of the most popular shows in the UK. How much do you think we paid for this? Zero? To get millions of dollars worth of advertising, we paid zero. You're wrong. We did not pay zero. We made him buy the system. So not only did we not pay, we got paid a little bit for it. But this is millions of dollars worth of it. This is like catching lightning in a bottle, and we're gonna show you later. This is what you dreamed for, right? It's just someone from your target customer group is out there talking about what it is and why it's so great. This is like phenomenal. How long do you think we had to prepare Simon Goodall for this day in the sun? Weeks? It's important to get the value proposition right. It's important to kind of, weeks? None. Well, I mean, so how many times do you think we met with Simon before this? Nothing.
This is your lead user, maybe once to deliver it.
20. Yeah. So here's the fact. I'll just fast forward to the conclusion. We didn't even know who Simon Goodall was. We'd never met Simon Goodall. But we knew exactly what Simon Goodall was like. We knew Simon Goodall wearing all black on TV. He has 1.5 body piercings. We don't know where they are yet. And he wishes he had gone to Rhode Island School of Design or Pasadena School of the Arts. He listens to Thomas Dolby music. He makes about, probably at the time, probably like 25,000 pounds. Do you remember the pound? You remember England? They're part of Europe. In the United States, they made about 35,000 at that point. They hung out with other people who were very much like them, and they talked about their art. And they went to bars, and they had, at that point, they had a lot of friends that were not straight, shall we say, not just purely heterosexual. They were either, gay in one way or another, or bisexual. This was their world. They would go and they would talk about these things. They didn't have enough money. They would go to the bars and they would sneak in with some vodka and they would pour that in their drinks because they didn't have enough money, but they wanted to go out. They were not married. And they just really loved what they did, and we knew what jobs they would jump from and companies they would jump between. Let me just finish this. And so we had never met him, and him chewing gum on TV, at national TV was perfect. And he loved us, and we had never met him. But we knew all about him, and why? Because we had a demographic psychographic, right? And we had hired someone. Dave Ballou was very similar to him, extremely similar. He worked at Hasbro. He was a toy designer. This wasn't exactly because he did more than toy design, but that's how he'd found out about it. And we had hired someone in the company that understood him very, very well, even though he hadn't talked to him in depth at all. And our value proposition was so clear that he just recited it. We didn't train him. It was just so clear and it was so on base that he just recites it. This is the power of having a beachhead market. You know who your customer is. For $5 million, we had built the hardware that he wanted right here, and we had industrial design awards for it. We had the software that he wanted, and we had the underlying technology. For $5 million. At IBM, we couldn't scratch our ass for $5 million. We couldn't have done a study to get this. And we came out with the product, the hardware, the software, the user interface. It's incredible. And at this point, we won awards. We had people lining up to get our product. Again, our server went down when this came out. In today's era, we could have packaged this up and got it out on social media. Unfortunately, at that time, we could not. And the big players started blocking us because they saw the threat. Today, you're so lucky to have social media. It's an unbelievable way. And if you don't use it right, we'll talk a little bit about that later. So this is the power of a beachhead market. And what happened was sensible. And we could go on after that. But there's just no way to get this type of efficiency unless you focus on that. So we're going to dive into this more later. We're going to talk about how do you align your persona with the value proposition right after lunch when we come back. But you had a question.
I just had a question of what was the cost for the customer for one of
What was the customer?
No, what was the cost of the actual device at that point?
So we did not sell the hardware alone. We sold a solution, and it was hardware, software, and they often wanted to buy the computer. That would be $30,000. And so that was not for...
Like a yearly wage for them.
Oh, yeah, but they didn't buy. They worked at Hasbro, and their boss, they were the end user. We're going to talk about end user, economic buyer. But our value proposition on going from 16 weeks to 8 weeks was probably, on average, $1 million plus. So 20,000 on $1 million, that's a very, very small piece. And you would say, why didn't you get more? And we can get into pricing and how you do some of that stuff later. But your value-based pricing, not kind of cost-based pricing. Okay, so we're going to come back at 2 o'clock. I'm sorry I ran a little over, but it's important we build the base here. All right, we'll see you at 2 o'clock. Is that right, Thomas? 2 o'clock back here? All right, good start.